Today we'll be talking about the man who broke the Bank of England. Well, not literally, but there is even more. Having amassed a wealth of over $40 billion, he gave away around $32 billion of it to Open Society foundations. This act has put him on the record as the most generous man in the world in terms of the percentage of his wealth he gave away, having given away around 64% of his wealth according to Forbes. Today the world may know George Soros as a generous billionaire, but not a lot of people know that George was a war survivor that built his way from the bottom to the top. In this video, we'll be uncovering all the myths around his survival from war, how he grew his revenue rapidly and ended up giving away almost all of them. Hey everyone, and welcome to Booked, where we inspire others with inspiring stories. In today's episode, we'll go over the story of George Soros and his company entrepreneurship journey. Born in 1930, George Soros was only 13 years old in 1944 when Nazi Germany invaded and occupied Hungary. Originally born to a Jewish family, George Soros' parents were a prosperous, non-observant Jewish family, but had to forge certificates to Christianity to survive the invasion. They even changed their original names from Schwartz, which was a German Jewish name, to Soros, all just to survive the war against Jewish people in Hungary. George Soros still thinks it was the best thing to do, as it helped his family enjoy liberty in the then anti-Semitic Hungary. It was bad that the Nazis barred Jewish school children from attending schools. Despite the hard times George and his family faced during the Nazi invasion, George said it allowed him to celebrate his father's heroism, as they did not only find a way to stay afloat, but also helped other Jewish people escape the butchery of the Nazis. Altogether, over 500,000 people were killed, but they would later find their way to escape in London. At the age of 17, George and his family emigrated to London. George became a student at the London School of Economics, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Philosophy, while also working part-time as a railway porter and as a waiter. From there, he would go on to receive a Master's in Philosophy in 1954. He would also earn a Doctor of Philosophy from the University of London. Before going mainstream into finance and investment, George Soros had tried a lot of things out informally. Aside from working as a railway porter and as a waiter in a nightclub, George also sold fancy goods on the seaside, major shops, and a lot of other places. He was literally hawking his wares. George Soros had wanted to be a philosopher, but somewhere along with his education, he started getting enthusiastic about economics and investments. He dumped his former ambition of becoming a philosopher and moved into finance and investments. On graduation, he wrote to all the managing directors in all merchant banks in London, and at the end of the day, only 2 responded. He would later only settle for London Merchant Bank Singer and Friedlander, where he had his first shot at the finance world. But it was not until 1956 when he moved to New York City and made a more notable mark as an analyst of European securities. Building the Soros Empire. On getting to the US, George Soros worked for several financial firms. He started with FM Mayer, where he spent around 3 years helping the firm trade European stocks, which were becoming popular at the US at the time. After 3 years with this firm, he moved to Wertheim & Co., and then to Arnold & S. Bloedroker, where he rose to the level of a vice president. After several years of success helping other companies manage their own business, it was time for George to set up his own business. So, in 1966, George Soros took a $100,000 loan from his current firm to test the financial markets and experiment on some trading strategies. 3 years later, he would take a bigger step to set up the Double Eagles Fund, using around $4 million he collected from investors. He also invested his personal $250,000 into Double Eagles Fund, and by 4 years later, George had grown the fund to $12 million. These were all the pre-activities that eventually led George Soros to start his fund management in 1970. Soros Fund Management was started in 1970, and George Soros became its chairman. He, however, did resign from the Double Eagle Fund due to conflicts of interest. So instead of transferring the investors he managed at Double Eagles to another fund or letting them go, he brought them to his fund and renamed his fund to Quantum Fund. By 2013, the fund made over $5 billion alone and over $40 billion since its inception. Quantum Fund is regarded as the most successful hedge fund in history, thanks to the brilliance of George Soros. Breaking the Bank of England. When I refer to George Soros as the man who broke the Bank of England, of course you didn't expect to hear about a man who robbed the bank with guns and all sorts of ammunition. For George Soros, the title came about due to a bold bet he made against the British pounds in the year 1992. George Soros made a one-day gain of $1 billion by short-selling the British pound on September 16, 1992. England was under pressure from other European countries to devalue its currency. Bearing in mind that the odds could go against him, George Soros took a $10 billion short position against the pound, betting that the pound would drop in value. This bold move, which earned him $1 billion, is considered one of the greatest trades in history. He began one of the world's most notable currency traders in history. The day this massive devaluation happened in the UK has been tagged as Black Wednesday. The UK is said to have lost around £3.3 billion. Giving it all away. Aside from holding daring tags like the man who broke the Bank of England, George Soros also holds some kind titles like the most generous man in history in terms of percentage of wealth he gave away. But aside from the success and philanthropy, George Soros has had his fair share of the media and conspiracy theories. Donating to progressive causes and organizations around the world has made him the object of various conspiracy theories. He's been the subject of unfounded accusations from the political right. For years, some have portrayed him as a puppet master who secretly controls the global economy, while others have made numerous claims that he is behind various events, such as the Women's March in 2017 and the gun control activism of the survivors of the Parkland shooting of 2018. I guess that's part of being extremely successful. People may likely have different opinions about you. But while there may be a lot of negative press out there, there are also a lot of good deeds that are worthy of applause. Since the 1970s, Soros has been active in helping black students in South Africa. He also started funding dissident movements around the country. His nonviolent democratization efforts are carried out through various foundations, which often go by different names. These include the Open Society Institute and the Stefan Batory Foundation. As of 2003, he has given away around $4 billion. George Soros is an enormously successful speculator who has made his mark by carefully withdrawing when the game is still far from its mark. He has made his fortune by encouraging open societies, which are more important than freedom of commerce. In 2007, Time magazine cited 2 projects funded by George Soros, which is said were aimed at improving internet infrastructure in Russia and Africa. These 2 projects, together with other donations made by the philanthropist, have helped boost the US's development efforts. Other notable projects include the establishment of the Central European University and the aid to scientists and universities in the region. In October 2017, George Soros transferred his pledge of $18 billion to the Open Society Foundation movement and projects across the world. In all of his achievements, I guess he would have been more proud for playing a role in helping his country, Hungary, transition from communism to democracy. There are tons of other philanthropic efforts George has made, and we may not be able to cover it all. There is a reason he's called the most generous man. Perhaps we may not be able to point out all of his generosity. Nowadays, George is enjoying his old age, but also busy giving away his wealth to causes he is passionate about across the world. Books recommendation. As usual, this is the section we tell you about the books George Soros read and wrote during his journey as an entrepreneur. We have done our bit to share about his life and success. Now it is your turn to read and understand the factors that motivated him to succeed. The Alchemy of Finance by George Soros. George Soros is without a doubt one of the world's most influential and successful investors today. Soros, dubbed the man who moves markets by Businessweek, made a fortune trading against the British pound and is still influential in the global financial community today. Soros provides a theoretical and realistic account of current financial developments, as well as a modern paradigm from which to understand the financial market today. In this book, Soros shared all the secrets about his success and how people can emulate what worked for him. Staying Ahead of the Curve by George Soros. In this book, Soros vividly recounts the beginnings of his illustrious financial career and shares his thoughts on investment in global finance, politics and the New World Order, and power obligation. He recounts his journey from Holocaust survivor to philosophy student, failed tobacco salesman to the world's most influential and lucrative trader, and introduces us to the people and events that shaped his character and sometimes divisive views. Soros tells the fascinating story of his phenomenally popular Soros Fund Management and its $12 billion flagship Quantum Fund, in explaining the investment ideas and financial techniques that have made him a superstar among money managers. He also shares new details on some of his most spectacular wins and defeats, including a first-hand account of the $1 billion he made betting against the British pound and the fortune he lost betting against the yen. No matter your situation or circumstance, you can rise to the top. Read good books and learn what worked for successful people.